he's tough, man. He's a lot smaller than him as far as, like, height and stuff. But he always seems to find a way to land that boxing of his. And he's got wrestling and stuff. So maybe he can incorporate his wrestling into this fight and his jiu-jitsu. I think he's got more tools than Israel, but he's obviously very dangerous and tricky, that guy. So tough fight.
That's going to be a hell of a fight because the styles are so different. Like it's really hard to predict because Kelvin's got really good boxing, but he's an inside boxer, and Izzy, world class striker from Southpaw Ortho. He's got all the strikes, teeps, head kicks. It can go one of two ways. We haven't really seen Izzy's grappling really get pushed, and I think that's probably the best way for Kelvin to win is to force the grappling. But Izzy's hands are so good; it's like that's easier said than done. I'm really torn, but if I were a betting man, it's easier for Izzy to implement his game plan as opposed to Kelvin's. I go with Izzy.
Man, oh man. It's like I haven't seen Israel really being pressured. I mean, Derek Brunson pressured him a lot, but it was an unintelligent way of pressuring. I mean, he's had his hands down, just running in, and Israel was just picking him apart. I think Gastelum will pressure him smarter. I think he'll keep the pressure very slowly, but it will be like one of those little tiny pressures that just kind of keep coming forward. He doesn't overdo it, and I think if Gastelum pressures him like he can and uses wrestling and tires him out up against the cage, it's going to be him. It's going to be Kelvin Gastelum. I think Israel, if he keeps his reach, keeps his feet going, keeps his speed, and stays calm out there in those clinch situations, I think he can definitely win it. This is the hard one, man. It's up in the air, man. I mean, both these guys are very good.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to come down to what Gastelum's game plan is. If Gastelum tries to just go out there, stand, and not mix up the takedowns, he's going to get obliterated. But if he can mix up the takedowns with his punches and control the pace of the fight, he'll beat Israel. But I don't know. Israel's hard to beat, man. He's very confident. Great range, great rhythm, great footwork, great feints, great fakes. He's probably one of the most complete stand-up fighters I've seen in a long time. I don't know, man. I'm going to roll with Israel on that one. But I like Gastelum as a wrestler, and, man, he gets the fighter's heart. And like Israel, because he's, a slick Nigerian, Australia, because I'm Nigerian too. Slick Nigerian from Australia can kick, punch. He's like an Anderson Silva type. He's Anderson Silva, carried over from Anderson Silva used to be. You know what I'm saying? That's Israel now. So I'm going to go with Israel, but if Gastelum can mix with the takedowns with the punches, Gastelum will win big.
Yeah, that's a tough, interesting fight. Adesanya, he's so technical and just crafty and unorthodox. So I could see him just kind of doing what he's been doing. He's an aggressive fighter, but then again, Kelvin Gastelum, that guy he has tons of power. So if he lands one of those punches, that could be, that could be the end of the fight. And he continues to surprise me and a lot of people every single time he fights. So, man, it just depends how the, once they get in there, it's kind of a hard fight to predict, but I could see either guy winning.
Tough one, man. Like, it's a weird matchup because Israel, I really like Israel. One of my favorite fighters in the UFC. I always kind of go for the strikers, right? So I really like him. I'm a fan. I've always ran into Kelvin for years now. We kind of do a job at UFC now and then. Great guy, great fighter. And he's the kind of guy, Kelvin, that he always seems to impress you. Like, you look at Kelvin, you don't say he's the best striker, you don't say he's the best wrestler, the best jiu-jitsu guy in the UFC. But every time he performs, you're like, man, Kelvin's really good. He's got great cardio. Man, he's fast on his feet. Man, he's got power in his hands. But you never, say those things initially about him. You say them after the fact. And so I do it as well. And when I look at him against Israel, I'm like, well, Israel just seems like he's going to have the advantage. But Kelvin's a guy that closes distances very well, wrestles very well, has tremendous cardio, and can grind you out if you need. And so I don't really have an answer. If I had to put money on it, I'd probably go with Israel, just because he's the kind of the newer, fresher guy. He's got the momentum, and I'm kind of going with that. But man, Kelvin's been a guy that just kind of shows time and time again why he's at that high level that he's at.
I think Israel Adesanya is going to smoke him. He's got, that's another guy who's really good at range management. And, he can throw any strike. There's not a strike that he can't throw. And as we've seen, his takedown defense is really good. And when you get it down to the mat, he has the ability to pop right back up. So it's going to be tough for Kelvin Gastelum to get through his jabs and his feints and his kicks and whatnot. So I think that Israel Adesanya takes that one.
I think it's going to be Gastelum, man. I feel like if he comes out, his grappling is going to be the key. I feel like he's so good at keeping his own range, and with his counter striking, I feel like he can catch Adesanya, and I feel like he's going to go back to his wrestling. I know he hasn't, I think they said he hasn't got a takedown since 2015, but I feel like he's a smart game planner and he's a smart fighter, and I feel like Adesanya is going to think that his size is going to be too much for him, and Adesanya is riding a lot of momentum right now. But I feel like he's gonna get burnt out because he had I think 6 fights this year, and I feel like Gastelum's a different guy than any of the guys he fought so far.
Israel Adesanya should be able to do pretty well in that fight. We're gonna see how he handles constant pressure, because remember before Kelvin Gastelum fought Uriah Hall, I think it was for the Ultimate Fighter finale or something, and he put a lot of pressure on him, and it was hard for him to kind of get off some of his techniques, But I think Adesanya's footwork and boxing is gonna actually help him set up some of his kicks and some of his knees and techniques. So that should be pretty good for him.
I just don't see how Kelvin can win. Adesanya's takedown defenses look too good, and his distance management is just too good, I feel like. That being that long and having, really the key to him is not just his length, but his footwork. A lot of people sleep on that guy's footwork because he doesn't pull back too much. His head doesn't get... it doesn't get behind his rear leg. Maybe it'll get in line with it once in a while, but if you watch him, he's always on balance and his feet are always moving together, which is the key thing if you're going to be a distance fighter. And I think he does that better than anyone in the division right now, and possibly better than anyone in the UFC as far as fighting at distance and cutting angles. So I just don't see how Gastelum wins that one.
I want to see, obviously Brunson fought Israel, but I just don't think he set up the shot to give his striking too much respect. So if Kelvin just goes out there and doesn't give him respect and gets in his face and takes him down, and I think he'll win. But if he plays the outside game, kickboxing range, he's gonna have problems with Israel, because there's no doubt that dude can strike. So I mean, you gotta not respect his striking, and you gotta close that distance on him. So it's just kind of who imposes their will and who does their own game plan. I think Kelvin wins it. If he does, if he pressures him, doesn't respect the striking, and it takes him down.
Well, that's gonna be an interesting fight. I used to train with Kelvin Gastelum. Kelvin Gastelum, he's definitely fights way better than he trains. He's great in training, great, but he surprised me every time he fights. Going forward, very strong, take punches, punching back is strong, and so the other guy, Israel, and it's gonna be a great fight. It's definitely. Let's say I'm rooting, and I really want that Kelvin Gastelum to win, because besides a good fighter, we used to be a teammate, and he's a cool guy. So technical wise, it's gonna be hard to decide. To tell you right now who's gonna win. It's gonna be a good fight, but I'm rooting and hoping that Kelvin Gastelum will win.